Welcome to Monday Motivation. This is a show that is aimed at starting off your week with energy, enthusiasm, and inspiration. Here at Family Media, we are celebrating 25 years since we have been on air, keeping Jesus on the airwaves. And what a privilege it has been just being able to inspire you with stories that motivate you to desire to be better. Well, have you ever started something? Or better yet, do you remember your first day at school? For many of us, to be honest, anything meaningful actually begins with the first step. And starting something is the beginning of its greatness. Today's guest is here to help us appreciate how you and I ought to start. And so we have a conversation on just start. She is a starter in many ways. She's an entrepreneur to boot. And today, ladies and gentlemen, we are joined by Mrs. Helena Mbuthia. Karibu, and thank you for coming to the show.
Asante, thank you for having me.
Can you just give us a little bit of your story? Who is Helena?
Helena is a wife, first, married to an amazing husband. We are blessed with a little one. We have a baby girl who just turned 1.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Thank you. I feel like now is when I'm out of maternity, vizuri.
Yeah.
I'm born again. I love the Lord with all my heart. I'm a daughter. I'm a sister. I'm a businesswoman. I wear many hats.
Yeah. So let's just touch on the business part quite for just a little bit, because that's the bulk of our conversation today. So what do you do in terms of business?
I run a consultancy called Raja Africa Advisory and Consultancy. So basically what we do is that we help businesses with strategy and also funding. So if a business wants to streamline their strategy process, if they've never had a strategic plan to begin with, we help them with that. And then if a business wants to get funding or is seeking funding, even in the near future, so we help you become investor ready, and also we connect you with the funders.
Wonderful. But is this the first business that you've ever engaged in?
Oh, no. And for sure, it's not the last. So it's not the last for sure, and it's not the first business.
So when did you start your first business, if you remember?
Wow, my first business has to be in uni. Actually, or actually just before I started uni. And so my parents were, especially my mom, had a yogurt business. It was called Yum Yum. To date, I believe it was the best yogurt in the market. And then she started telling us, if you want to get any pocket money, I need you to start selling. And so that was my first interaction actually with sales and with understanding business and money. And so I'd even sell to my friends, which I think for a business person, that's sometimes one of the hardest things, because it's people who know you as this person and you don't have to sell a product to them with the hope that they're going to give you money. And so that's when I started. I started selling, and then that was just before university, because I was in a program called Impact. And so we'd go with the yogurt there and sell. Then I went to uni, and I remember I'd use my mom's car on Fridays. Then I'd have yogurt with a cold box.
This is now at the university?
Yeah.
Okay.
And at that time, the guard used to have a problem with me selling. And I remember telling him, but I'm an entrepreneurship student. What's the problem? So then my lecturer had to be involved. And that way now at least they agreed. So they told me at least if it's once a week, that's okay. So every Friday, I just collect orders throughout the week. Then on Fridays, I tell people this is how much yogurt I'm going to be bringing. I'd always carry extras because I always believed that I'd sell them at least. And honestly, I never went back with any yogurt. I just
sold everything?
Everything. On Fridays, I always had my orders. and I'd sell all the extras. Yeah. So that started getting me into the journey of business and understanding sales and understanding money, and it now gave me a thrill. Yeah. And then in uni, because you had initially mentioned, you started something else. Yeah. So this time it was not your mom's business. No. It was your own. Yeah. Tell us a bit about that. So again, my parents decided to take the route of not giving pocket money, which I thank them for, honestly. And I need to just give a background. Both my parents are in business. So for me, I've seen the world through that lens.
Yeah.
I've not seen them employed. They were employed before, especially my mom was employed before we were born, left when we were born. And so I just know the world through the lens of business. And so for my sister and I, we asked ourselves, okay, what can we come up with to give us pocket money? Because at that time we were both in university. The other catch is our dad bought us cars, but told us, I'm not going to be failing the cars. So
no, you actually had a good start.
Yeah, we had a good start.
Yeah,
that's true. We had a good start.
Yeah.
And I really thank him for that, because he told me my work is to buy. From that point, maintenance, everything now is on you.
Yeah.
And so we had to actually start our business. It was out of a need. At that time in university, so you're not looking for a job per se. We're still doing day classes. You can't do an 8 to 5.
Yeah.
I didn't want to commit to working in the evening or doing evening classes, because again, he was very clear, you need to have a social life. So I can't let you have evening classes, because that means you're in class with older people.
Yeah.
So it's good that you also build your. So now we've been left with no choice but to start our business. And so we got our little savings, went to town, and then we bought some jewelry. And we started a company called Ziam.
All right.
Ziam somehow grew so much that we started even exporting to the US.
Really? Wait, hold on. You're taking us too fast. So you're at the university. You've just begun a business out of necessity.
Yeah.
Just for pocket money and maybe to fuel the car that your dad has bought you. But now it has grown, you're even exporting. Tell us just a bit more about that, as student exporting.
Yeah, so what happened, we started buying jewelry from downtown. And then with time, we were like, okay, this is not the kind of quality that we actually like. So one day we went to Masai Market and we found suppliers who could be supplying some accessories. That time, I dare say we were among the first ones to actually be on Instagram and selling accessories through Instagram. And so that time we didn't have, right now we have Uber, Boda, who you can call for delivery. Remember that time, none of that existed.
Yeah.
So websites were not such a big thing for small businesses. We didn't have all that, but we just had Instagram. And so we went to Masai Market, we found a supplier. And then we used to go on a platform called Etsy and Pinterest, and sometimes we'd get designs. So we'd ask our supplier then how to custom make our own jewelry.
Yeah.
And so again, Instagram being Instagram, at that time, you could see a lot of content even from abroad. And somehow we now started getting clients from the US.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and that's just how, it was nothing we didn't even target specifically.
Yeah.
But I remember there's a time we used to run ads, and at that time we had to teach ourselves, how do you run an ad? And you just put the US even just as a... And so we got our client, and at that time now we had to now get into contract with one of the courier companies here, so that they're the ones we'll be using to do our deliveries there. Our first client in the US till today has never finished paying us. And it's okay. It's okay. Yeah, we had we learned a lot in that period, and Zam continued for some time, but at some point we had to close it.
Okay. But just a bit on that, because this seems to be sort of the first business that you started, and it grew to a point of you are actually an exporter. What would you say are some of the challenges that you faced on just starting?
Honestly, I think at that time, which is I think the advantage of being young is that you don't think much. Because at that time, there's a place you can call home. Your school fees is being paid. And so it's just, are you audacious enough to start? I feel like when you're small, when you're younger, that's just, are you audacious enough to start? And then you need to remember, at that time, we had 1,000 bob per 1,000 bob. Many of my business, there's another business I started with another 1,000 bob that we'll get into it.
Wait, so you actually began that business that you ended up being an exporter, you began with 1,000 bob.
So we went to one of the jewelers in town. It was my mom's friend. She gave us the stock, we paid her, and then we'd always go back. We'd always go back. And then at that time, we didn't have many needs, honestly. So it was so easy for us to continue just playing back into the business. We didn't have, again, the best financial discipline, which now led to the downfall of the business. But yeah, it was just starting with whatever we needed. I didn't think much of, I feel like now is when now we've gotten to a point where we now have to sit, think and plan strategies before we start. But that time, I'll be very honest, for the first business,
we just started.
Honestly, there's no deep story. We literally just started.
But we mentioned there's another business again that you began. Again, with just 1,000 bob. Tell us about that.
So now at this point, what happened with me and my sister, we started eating into the profits of that business, right? Then our interest just grew apart. I need to mention that's my twin sister. So she was in a different university from where I was. And then we were like, no, business wouldn't be the thing that kills our sisterhood. And so we just decided to close that. But again, remember, our dad is not giving us money. At this point, actually, I think he was giving us a bit of pocket money, 1,000 bob for the whole week. But he was saying, so you choose if you're going to eat or to fill the car, one of the two. So he had a talk with us. Yeah, he was like, just one of the two. So he had a talk with us and he told us, not even that 1,000 bob I'm not going to give. So what happened actually is we went to him with our plan and we told him, instead of giving us 1,000 bob every week, how about you give us monthly allowance? Okay? This monthly allowance, we're able to make it to grow before the month ends. So that by the time the month is ending, at least instead of the 5K or 4K, we have even 8K. And Dad listened to us, like, that's a very good idea. But this is not what is going to happen. I'm going to give you 20,000, okay? With the 20,000, I need you to know you're never coming back for me now, for any pocket money. Now we are just done completely. So go figure out what you're going to do.
Like, this is your inheritance.
For university. This time we were in, I think, second year. We had just joined second year, actually. So he told us, this is the last money I'm giving you university. You need to figure out what you're going to do. So now let's backtrack. Before then, the business has closed, and now at this point, we're struggling a bit, but I think he could see, because he's still giving us 1,000 bob, we're a bit comfortable. So he now starts now giving us the threat of, by the way, guys, time, I'm about to stop giving you money completely. And so we just start something separately, but you're still not giving it your 100%. So again, with 1,000 bob, there's a friend of mine, when actually we were still in high school, there's a time we went with her to do boys, or as people say, Dubois. And she was buying,
which side of town you grew up in.
Her mom used to work for NTV. So she'd buy watches there and then take to her mom's colleagues. So I remember thinking, okay, I remember there's this place my friend had once gone with me, and she bought some watches. So I was like, okay, let me now go back there and then see what else I can buy. And so I went to Dubois, and I went and I scouted. I found some things to buy. Again, it's 1,000 bob. Again, I need to give credit to our dad, because he taught us a way of just saving and making sure your business grows. And so he told us, without 1,000 bob, I need you to multiply it, get 2,000 bob. Once it's 2,000 bob, remove fare only, go back, buy stock worth 2,000 bob. And it sounds like something simple, but it taught me so much about how I see money and business. And so with 1,000 bob, it grew. When it got to 2,000 bob, it was like, when it gets to 2,000 bob, come and tell me. And so I told him, and he asked me how much is fare. Told him the fare. He told me, remove that, go back, use all that money to buy stock. And I did that. He told me, double the money, let it come to 4,000. I did that again. When it got to 10,000, he told me, no, you need to reward yourself. Buy yourself something now, so that you know, anytime you work, you know the joy of money, and you can reward yourself and appreciate yourself. And so now for me, I started seeing money that way. It's go, buy, multiply. Go, buy, multiply. Go, buy, multiply.
Also, there's a reward element there. So you're not just saving. And you know, you're straining yourself here, and there's no joy in whatever you're doing. But there's an element of rewarding yourself. And so I remember him even telling me, when it gets to 20,000, what do you want to get yourself? And I told him, I want a tablet. And he said, yeah. When it gets to 20,000, go buy yourself that tablet. And that's how I bought my first tablet. Wow.
Yeah, literally. And I think part of it was to make you now be so focused on a goal that you not stop eating money. from your business, because you know at the end of the day I really want to save up for a tablet. And so anytime I'd double my money like this, I'd go back buy stock. Even if I double at 1 p.m., 2 p.m., I'm already in town buying stock. And so now when he saw now at least we're starting to become financially disciplined, it's when he told us, now I can let you guys go. This is now the capital I'm going to give you, 20,000. You choose what you want to do with it. You want to put it in business, that's fine. If you want to do something else again, that's totally fine. But after this, now I'm not giving you money anymore. And I remember that was the last time. That was probably 2015. Yeah, 2015, I think is the last time my dad gave me money for... From
there, you have been independent.
Yeah, from there it was... In fact, I remember our grandfather died in 2018 and he gave me money to buy clothes. I was so shocked. I was like, wow. Oh, wow, you've given me money to buy clothes? But yeah, from there, we've had to be independent. That business, again, I closed it after university. I call it that was my university business. It's a business that taught me money, taught me independence, responsibility. Yeah, it was that business. Yeah,
we will get to where you are now and what happened post-university, because you're still a businesswoman. But let's just go back a bit. If you were to go back, would you have done anything differently?
There are times I think about it and I have answers. But there are times, again, in retrospect, I think, and I'm like, it's made me who I am today. So I don't think I'd change much. What though I'd say is this: if you're a business person and you start business in university, please network well in school. Because you go out here, your university people now have colleagues in the offices. Entrepreneurship can be very lonely. Because it's just you. So your networks in university come through so much. But again, it's a bit hard because, like, for me, while my friends were socializing in school, that's the time I was running to get stock. Or that's the time, because I said that time we didn't have like orderly border systems and all that. So I'd have to actually get onto a matatu and go for a delivery. Or sometimes even just use my car, go for delivery. So I didn't have much time in university to socialize as much as I'd have wanted to. But the good thing with that is it made me really prioritize my studies. So it's when it's time to study, it's time to study. I wouldn't miss class because I know if I miss class, I don't have much time to study because I'm running a business after that. And so I passed. I really did well in my university. So I look at it, I'm like, okay, there are things maybe what I'd have done better, and I tell this to anyone in university, build your networks there. Socialize as much as you can possible, while you're still in university, because those are the people who will become lawyers, will become bankers, will become what, and you need them as a business person, because you're not in that 8 to 5, you will not need them as a business person. So just network, don't daraw anyone, don't, just network, have as many friends as you can.
Wow, I like that. You mentioned a bit about the fact that, you know, you're probably among the first people to get into IG, some sort of an online store of some sort.
Yeah, we have seen Instagram grow and change. I have been,
What are some of the lessons you learned in that space, you know? Or maybe there's somebody who's considering that space, you know, what are some of the things you tell them, just in terms of that specific aspect of it?
Instagram, and I think having any business on social media will teach you to adapt fast. Because technology changes in just overnight. So let me give context. When we were starting on Instagram, we just needed to follow people to build your following. You just needed to literally just follow people. Follow and they're going to follow you back. It was that simple. And then when we started, things were organized chronologically. And so if my post was a minute ago, anyone who enters is going to see it. With time then, Instagram started changing. And so now you'll enter, maybe it's a post for 2 days ago. What that means is you don't see business posts as much as you used to before. And then nowadays you don't just follow people. In fact, at some point on Instagram, if you followed many people, now they'd ban you. Yeah, they'd think you're like a robot. Why are you following many people? They'd now ban you. And so you had to adapt very, very fast. And right now, Instagram, I'll be honest, it's not the same space it was before. A lot has changed, and so it feels like you almost now need more security. So if it's in form of a website, if it's in form of what else, like you can't just have Instagram as your only store. it changes a lot. It just, so you need to adapt.
Yeah. All right. Would you say, as you look back at how you started, would you say there's a difference between people who start things and people who just keep waiting? They have ideas, they have thoughts, they have plans, but they just never start. Would you say there's a difference?
I think, one, there's a lot of, and this is a challenge now to parents, a lot of it is from the upbringing. You may not realize it, but your kids see how much risk you take.
Yeah.
Your kids see it. And how you even respond to failure. Your kid sees a lot of that. And so part of starting, and for the people I've talked to, why are you not starting? They're afraid of failure.
Yeah.
And when you go back, how was failure taken in the house? Were you condemned for it? Were you almost made to feel useless because of failure? So I think a lot of it starts from the home.
Yeah.
And so for me, that's why I gave a background that my parents are more into business. So I have seen them starting and failing many times. So for me, I knew failing is part of being a business person. So I'll never not start something because I'm afraid it will fail. For me, I know if something fails, even what I'm doing today, I'll start something else. Like I serve such a big God that my ideas can never run. I can never run out of ideas.
I like that.
Yeah, I can
like
never run out of the ideas. And so I know the idea that I have now, he's the one who gave me. If it fails, I'll know why it failed. I know it was for a season. And then I know he's gracious enough to give me the next idea.
Yeah.
So start. If you feel like it's that, ask yourself, why am I afraid to start? Is it something that I saw growing up that maybe I need to break and I need to address? If that's the thing, then imagine it's okay. It's okay because many of us, that's our scare. Right now, for Daraja, my co-founder is also someone who struggled starting. And maybe the tip I'll give you that has worked for her now, find an entrepreneur then. Start with them. As you're not afraid of failure. When we will tell you, we're not afraid of failure. So look for that entrepreneur then, and start.
Well, you have so much wisdom oozing. I know you don't betray a lady's age, so we won't talk about how old you are now, but let's go back in time. You began a business. Maybe you can help us appreciate how old you are. You have a family now. I mean, at what point, by the time you were getting married, you know, around what age were you? So just people to appreciate that you started, not just a business, you started a family. It's a whole, you know, huge feat.
Actually, I don't think I should be shy to say my age so that it gives, if it's going to help people, because currently I'm 29 years, if it's going to give people the context and help them at least be audacious, it's okay. And so I started my first business before I turned 18.
You did not even have an ID.
I didn't have an ID.
Wow.
Started my first business before I turned 18. I always knew I wanted to be in business from the time I was in high school. So we went to a boarding school. We told our dad, we cannot be in a boarding school. And I remember telling him, if I'm to be an entrepreneur, boarding is not helping me. I need to have the discipline to wake up by my own. I need to learn all those things. And so he was gracious enough to remove us from boarding, took us to a day school, which till today I thank him for. Because, my parents, I really thank God for them. Because I think them removing us from, and this is just my story and my sister's, but us being in a day school helped us balance. All they told us is, I'll never tell you to wake up to study. And so I learned that because as a business person, you have to have self-discipline. And so as a business person, now looking back, I'm like, that's when I learned it. I learned this is when you wake up, this is when you study. You have to be the one in charge of your own time. And so finish high school, start a business before we joined uni. And then first business, as I've told you, with my sister, dies at some point, start selling jewelry. I graduate, and I have to say this story. When I graduated, it was probably one of my lowest moments in life. Because at that time, I didn't have a business per se. But now looking back, I think I was comparing myself a lot to people because that time you've graduated, other people are now doing 8 to 5s, and you feel like that's the life. And I remember my parents telling me, as a business person, what you need to accept is that some people will get things faster than you because of the places they are in. So for example, look at our financial industry now. It's harder for a business person to get a loan, a long-term loan, as compared to someone who's employed.
With a
because
payslip.
you have a payslip. And so those are some of the things that you have to accept as a business person. Might be harder in the long run. And so I start to re-strategize and I ask myself, what am I going to do next after high school? And I remember there's a time in school, I wrote a whole business plan about a baby shop and just being in the baby industry. And I won. It was a competition and I won.
Yeah.
And so I literally took that business plan. Again, this time I didn't have money, but this time I had shame to go to my father because I'm done with university. And so I felt like I couldn't ask him for anything. That time I was dating now my husband, and literally again with him I told him I just need 1,000 bob. Yeah. I just need. And I told him.
You borrowed from your boyfriend.
Actually, I told him I have 1,000 bob ready. He told me, do you need another one? So I told him, yeah, 2K will do me a lot. A lot. Yeah. And so I went to toy market. And I met a lady called Maureen. And I told Maureen, I want to start a baby shop. I have many small cousins, and so I know what they wear every day, and I want to start with their basics. But I need you to trust that I will be back to be buying more. Yeah. Maureen till today is someone I thank for. I thank God for in my journey because someone Maureen with 2,000 bob believed me that I want to be, that I'm coming to buy on wholesale. And Maureen told me it's okay. So this is what you need to start with your money. Because that time I had gone and I'm like, I want to start buying baby shoes. Nini Maureen told me, no, with the money you have, I need you to start buying this. This is what I'll sell to you. When you sell, come back. And now let's grow together. Yeah. And that's how I started with Maureen. And so at that time, I had just finished university. It was 2018. Yeah, I finished 2017, graduated 2018. Yeah. And so I started now afresh. And it was hard for me. Another business now. No, for the baby line. And so I started with Maureen. She taught me a lot. And I remember for me at that time, I was telling myself, what am I selling? I'm selling convenience to mothers. Okay. I need any mom.
So you're not selling clothes?
No,
you're selling convenience.
Yeah. So I told myself, what am I selling? Convenience. So I need any mom who's coming to me to be able, I was like, okay, being a mom must be difficult. You go through pregnancy, you go through. So shopping should be the easiest bit of it. So I'm going to give them that convenience and I'm going to deliver it to their houses. If they need any exchanges, I'm the one who's going to be organizing. Like I just needed mothers to relax. That's actually what I kept on telling myself. I need moms at least to relax. And literally that's what I sold. So anytime I'd go, I'd remember I'm selling convenience to mothers. So if it meant bundling up things, instead of letting them not pick one trouser and then not go through so many things, no, it's take nice photos, bundle up the trouser so that by just looking at one photo, they can see everything. Yeah. And so my photography skills became A1 at that point. You are
doing the photography yourself?
Everything. I'd get home, clean the clothes, iron them. So my mom started charging me for electricity. I didn't know how much ironing consumes. So they charged me for electricity. I told her that's okay. So I'd get home, I'd iron the clothes. When we started, they were very kidogo. And then it got to a point now I'd sleep even at 3 a.m. just ironing, making preparing the clothes because it will be a lot. And I remember I'm selling convenience. So I don't want a mom who's getting wrinkled clothes and all that. No, I wanted them, if you get my clothes, your baby is ready to wear. If you choose to wash them again, well and good. And so I'd do that. And then got to some point, I had to look for someone not to help me with the washing and the sorting and all those things.
So now you have employed someone?
Yeah, now I have to employ someone. Then it got to a point and I was like, okay, maybe now I have enough to now start bringing in new clothes. And so now I moved now from second-hand clothes, then now I started now bringing in new clothes. And that's now opened the world of importing for me.
Okay.
Yeah.
So now we are getting into, okay, we will come to that because I mean, there's quite a bit to be unpacked there. So first, initially when you were still younger and in campus, you were exporting. Yeah. And now post-campus, you know, with this convenience business, not a clothing business. No, I like that change of mindset. Now even, you know, importing has become a thing. Now, we will get back to that. But just for a bit, tell us, as you began and as you were starting, what would you say were your highest joys and pains, if any?
Let me start with my highest joy is starting. Just starting. Yeah. Starting it was such a joy for me, especially after camp, because at that time I knew I've gone to uni, I have to do something differently. And especially because I had majored in entrepreneurship and marketing, I was like, I have to do something very differently. Yeah. And so starting a business, and you'd look at it as a mtumba, but for me, I knew my background was was completely different. And so being able to actually implement some of the things that I studied in class, in my day-to-day business, was such a high for me. Earning money
Yeah.
was a high for me. In terms of laws, oh wow, comparing myself, let me not even start talking about the business. Let me start talking about self, because entrepreneurship has a lot to do with the owner.
Yeah.
Comparing myself it took a lot for me to get out of that. Yeah, because at that time, you actually see the benefit of employment almost suddenly with your friends and the change of lifestyle for them. You almost see it instantly.
Yeah.
And you have to accept that your journey might take longer. And it took me a while to actually accept that.
Yeah.
So that for me was actually quite a low. And then being, in university, when you're the one doing business, you literally are the one with money.
It's true.
For that to change, it deals with your character in a certain way. And at times I really thank God that I dealt with that when I was younger. Those are not things that disturb me now. Those are things that I had to deal with when I'm 23. Those are things that are...
So someone has to deal with that.
You have to deal with that. You actually have to deal with that. Otherwise, and it's something I'm going to talk about later, you need to be content as a business person.
Yeah.
And that's something you have to. And at times God will put you through that fire. And you have to take that fire and to accept that journey, because he's preparing you for another season. Because being in business, other hard moments, low moments of sales, and what do? That time I have employed someone, you need to pay them.
Yeah.
My dad had gotten us a space, but he was like, you need to pay rent, so you still need to pay rent. And so being in a space where, and any business person will tell you this, there are many times you'll pay things and you'll remain with zero. Those are hard days. But you just need to soldier on, and you don't give up at that time. But your character is sharpened.
Yeah.
It's sharpened, So for me, dealing with insecurities that I didn't know I had, and dealing with low financial seasons, they were challenging.
All right. Just before we go on a break and then we come back to this conversation, who would you say are people that you look up to, that have shaped how you have thought about business and life in general?
I'll talk about one person.
All right.
Wandia Gishuru. If you don't know Wandia Gishuru, please look her up. Wandia Gishuru runs Vivo. Vivo is a...
This is not
brand.
Vivo Energy.
Not Vivo Energy.
Okay.
Vivo is actually not for me. I think simply because of how much I look up to her. When I hear Vivo, I don't even think of Vivo Energy first.
Yeah.
But Vivo is Kenyan brand. They make clothes here in Kenya, and they recently just opened a store in the US.
A whole store?
A whole store in the US. I don't know if Kenyans know how big that is.
Wow.
Because we have many people from abroad who open shops here. For us to be the ones to open shops in the US, Wandia is just such an inspiration.
Wow.
Yeah. If actually she's the only one I'll mention.
Wow, that's a big deal.
She's such an inspiration. She really inspires me.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know I'm just a girl, but I can do big things. Yeah.
And I think you are inspiring quite a number of people even as we're having this conversation.
I pray so.
Okay, let's just take a break and then we come back to continue with this conversation. Okay. Well, what a conversation we are having on just starting. Our guest today is oozing much wisdom despite her age. What a conversation we have been having here on just starting. Our guest is oozing so much wisdom despite her age. Helena Mbuthia Moher is a starter. She started various businesses. She started a family, and she's not yet clocked 30. Wow. Please continue following us, share with your friends, send us a text message on 20316, WhatsApp on 0786 316 316. Let us know, what are the things that you are learning? What other things would you like to learn? But now, let us continue with this conversation. Helena, karibu back from the break.
Asante.
So you're just telling us about the fact that this business that you had started, selling convenience to mothers, not just a clothing business.
Convenience.
That you actually started importing now. Tell us a bit about that.
So we left it. I knew it was time for me to move from Tumba because the work was not becoming a lot. And now it was time for me not to start bringing new clothes. And so I had tried importing before, but just a few items.
Yeah.
So the first thing actually I did before I imported is I first went to Isili.
Okay.
Because someone had told me in Isili you get many baby clothes. So I went there. I saw the things they had. I bought a few, but I knew there are more things that I needed, especially if you've been exposed to importing, then already you know the kind of variety that comes.
Yeah.
But it was also important for me to go so that I know how much wholesalers are selling locally, so that I don't bring in items that are more expensive than what they have.
Yeah.
Or even look at what they have, so that now I bring what is different from them.
So you did some sort of a market survey of some sort?
And I actually had to buy the clothes. And so I started buying the clothes from them. And I did that actually for a while before I went to full-on importing.
Yeah.
I did it for a while. Again, there, to be honest, my business really, really grew. It grew. At that time, I remember my financial discipline was high. One, because I knew we were about to get married.
Yeah.
And so we needed now to start saving up for us moving out before the wedding. So he needed to first get a house, and then we needed to now save up for our wedding, all that, which we had planned to be in 2020. And so now I had a goal, and I knew now I'll be completely off my father in a few years.
Yeah.
So at this time, they don't know, but for me and my husband, we had talked, and so we knew come 2020, we're getting married. And so now in 2019, I go to Isili. And I got, let me tell you, God sent wholesalers.
Yeah.
Those people really taught me business, to be honest. They taught me business, and they wouldn't wait for me to slack.
Yeah.
It's, you know, you've not been here in 2 days, you need to come back.
Wow.
And so I started talking to them about importing, again, because I knew that the ones who are still the importers. So I told them, but I think the stock you have, I'd want to bring in some more for me. Is it possible? Because I noticed anytime you go there, especially in the mornings, you'll find big trucks. So for them, the advantage they have that we don't have, unfortunately, is they work with numbers.
Okay.
They work with numbers, and importing is all a game of numbers.
Yes, so
the
you can't
more
just
you buy,
wake
the
up
cheaper
and
it is.
You know, I want to import 2 items.
You can't.
Okay.
And even if you do, they'll be very expensive. So there is provision for that. You can bring in 2 items, but they'll be expensive. But they bring in hundreds of thousands.
Yeah.
And so I told them, I want to be part of this. So is there a way, as you're bringing in your things, when you have your person there, and they also had agents in China. If you have an agent in China, can I also send my order through you guys, and then you'll be selling it to me? It worked for a moment, and then I noticed for them, because they all have to wait for each other, it will take so long.
Yeah.
So remember, even if I'm bringing in things, maybe mine are 10 items, those are still thousands, hundreds of thousands.
Yeah.
And so my 10 will still have to wait for almost 2 months for them to arrive. So for me, it didn't make financial sense, because I've tied in a lot of money in that. Only for it to take 2 months before it grows, I was like, no. So I started doing my research. Why then directly talk?
So are you doing the research online? Where are you doing
research
this
online?
And the reason why I'm asking that
online
is because when I was in campus, I also tried starting something together with some friends of mine. So we were in a Bible study, and so the guys in the Bible study, we gathered and we started brainstorming. Maybe we need to start something, and you know, we drew up a plan, and one of the brilliant ideas we got is to import human hair for ladies. And we had a friend who had connection with somebody from China, and so, you know, it seemed like a very viable idea. And so we got together, did a business plan. I'm not so sure how much of a business plan that was, and each of us contributed 5,000 bob. And so we sent, the hair arrived. According to our estimations, we were supposed to make 200% plus profit. So I was very excited about that. But you see, unlike you, we had not done any kind of research. And so what happened is, I was, I think, a marketer then. I think I had that in me, but for good products. So I figured I will sell this thing. So I talked to a friend of mine who was working in a salon. I didn't know there was a test to actually test the authenticity of human hair. So I think she just, you know, lit a matchstick and burnt, you know, the tip of the hair, and they started laughing. And you know, our business collapsed. So I wish we did research.
Yeah.
Yeah, but yeah. So just
research is very important.
Yeah.
Especially before you tie in money into anything, you need to do some level of research, which is something as I was saying when I was younger. Those are things I didn't really focus, because you have now 2,000 bob.
Yeah.
You're like, I mean, if it goes, it's just 2,000 bob. Now you're talking about I have now started going to Italy, and I really wanted to learn this business before I started importing. And so I took advantage of them. Like anything they'd bring, I'd also now have in my shop.
Yeah.
So that now I know, okay, does this thing sell? Because before I import, for me importing, here I can buy one item. Importing, I need to buy, even let's say if it's 10 pieces, that's still a lot. So I need to know before I tie my money into this if it's going to sell.
Yeah.
And so part of research was me also spending money and just buying the items. And my business honestly grew a lot. I was able to save up a good amount of money. That was now 2019, which I call it my year of research and my year of my business being known. My business is called Kiki Baby Store. Yeah. I'm sure as I say this, there are people who know. There's so many spaces I go to and people know Kiki Baby Store, and it really, like it just makes me so happy.
Yeah.
And so I started buying their clothes. 2019, I call it my year of research. 2020 is the year of marriage. And so
you research in 2019.
Exactly.
In 2020,
we now need to get married, end of year. So now my business needs to be firm visually, because now even as we're doing premarital counseling, at that time we need to also discuss finances. So we need to put a figure, how much are you actually bringing to the table a month? We're not just saying, no, we need, no, there's there's no accountability, you know? And so COVID happens in 2020. But who had been researching about importing? This girl here. Yeah. And that was actually why my business pivoted. And COVID did
your business pivoted in 2020?
My business did the best it's ever done in 2020.
As businesses are closing. Wow.
Because remember, I'm online already. And so other businesses know it's when they're coming online. I already have the trust.
Wow.
I've already been trying out importing. Yeah. And so even as Italy closes, China found a way of still bringing our items to us. And so I started importing at that time. And I remember there's a family, because I told you I tried first in Italy with my suppliers there. And then it hit me, their model wasn't working for me. Yeah. And so I went to actually a family member who would physically go to China. And I told her, please just give me your agent's contact. She refused. I said, it's okay. But I had been doing my research. Actually, when she refused, I was very motivated, to be honest. Because
I like that. Yeah.
People out here are not willing to help you. So I had to actually now. And so I came across the platform Alibaba. So how does Alibaba operate? If you don't know much about it, by the way, you wouldn't know where to start. Yeah. And so I had to do my research. Who is an authentic supplier here? Know the real. It becomes easier to know who's fake. Yeah. So just know the real person. What are the qualities of a real supplier? So that, again, I'm not conned and all those things. How am I going to be sending payment and all those things? And I had now my product ready. Like, okay, so now my basics are here. I can start with a few things. So just even before COVID, I had started importing. So now, when COVID hits, and Italy is closed. Yeah. And I remember, in fact, in Italy, cops were so many there. Like they wanted to open, they're still opening their businesses.
So they're trying to prohibit people from opening.
Yeah. And you understand, at that time we didn't really understand how COVID was. And so I feel like it was in the best interest, according to the government, Italy being a business hub, shut it down. Otherwise, the virus is going to spread from there. So you don't blame the government for doing that. But what does that mean for all other businesses that depend on Italy? It was a tough time. And so I start importing and I bring my items by air. I was happy. When they landed, I was so happy. So I start selling, continue ordering more, sell, continue ordering more, sell. And then come that 2020, one of my friends didn't have a job. Okay. And I told her, you know, I actually import, and I think I can teach you how to do it, so that at least you have something. Yeah. Because she was going through a hard time. And so I taught her. I literally came up with like a class. I formed like a class.
A whole
with
curriculum.
Slides. Yeah.
This is interesting because remember you've mentioned before, it is very difficult to find people to actually help you hold
and I didn't
your
want
hand.
to. I didn't want that to be her story.
Yeah.
I didn't want it to be her story.
Yeah.
So I told her, there's this thing that I do, and I think it's going to help you. It was way off her profession, but I was like, and this is something I tell people, business is not for certain people, it is for everyone. You need to learn how to sell something, because a time will come, all you have is learning to sell.
Yeah.
When your job goes, you need at least to learn how to sell something. Even in your job, you learn how to sell yourself.
Yes, that's true.
So
that's true.
it's not a tip for specific people. I feel like, especially now with how things are, we all need to know how to sell things.
Yeah.
So I told her, let me actually teach you how to do this thing. So I trained her. She told me there's another friend of hers who's also struggling. I trained that friend. And honestly, for some time, I did it without charging people. And I think for me, it was just the heaviness of COVID. And I was like, things are tough right now. So I did that. And then we got married in November. Honestly, my business was able to fund a big chunk of the wedding as well, because my husband had just gotten employed in 2019. This time we were 25. Yeah. He had just gotten employed in 2019.
You were 25 and getting married.
25 and getting married.
You are risk takers.
I remember my dad just asking, I had really prayed to God, because I knew I'd get married at 30. I was so sure I'd get married at 30.
Yeah.
And I remember my parents just telling me, as long as you're over 25, you're okay. I was like, it's okay.
Yeah.
And so now at this time, my husband had graduated, gotten his job in end of 2019. Yeah, September of 2019. Moved out in March. Now he's employed. He's moved out, then COVID hits. Because he literally moved out March, proposed that next weekend, then COVID was announced after we got engaged.
It is good he proposed before COVID.
We thank the Lord. In fact, I said that was the last normal weekend before COVID hit. And not even for him, because I was in business, by virtue of being close to me, he had also started his business. And so at that time, so now we're like, okay, COVID has hit, our businesses might not be able to do. At that time, you don't know well as they are. Now you have the responsibility of rent, something that you didn't have before, and we also have the wedding. And that thing really motivated me to work. And I worked and I worked and I taught people. And we get married, and come 2021, he tells me, actually, now that you've been teaching people, don't think it's time for you to monetize teaching people how to import? And I thought, okay, that's actually a really good idea. But let me not do it differently. Instead of just teaching the importing bit of it, how about we also include finances? How do you deal with finances as a business person? How do you build a strategy as a business person? And so I had a whole course, and it would take 3 days. 2 hours, 2 hours, 2 hours each. And only the first day, actually, the first day would cover importing. And then after that, now we'll know like business classes. And
at
so
this time, you have actually done business. You are an authority to actually teach.
And at this time also, guess what? Because of COVID, people want online classes. And so I don't have to look for space. It's actually telling someone, we're charging the classes 20K. And I tell them,
like, for real, that is what you used to charge? Wow.
And so you pay the 20K, and I teach you how to import. I even teach you, not just, I'd give you still a contact list of your suppliers. But I'd still tell you how I'm teaching you. You should be able to get suppliers in any industry. If at any point you feel like what you've told me, because they'd come tell me this is my business. So for example, one of them wanted home decor. I was in the home decor space, and she told me this is what I'd want. So I'd get her still suppliers for that, but still teach her how to get genuine suppliers. And so for me, it was that, like, I want you to be free. I want you to know you don't have to come back to Helena for that. But more than that, how do we grow your business? How do we handle finances for your business? Many of them, that's the time I taught them the concept of having an emergency fund for your business and building it up. And so those are things that we did through that class. Then a time comes, and another lady approaches me, and she wants to import a machine. So I tell her, oh, I can't teach. And she tells me, I don't have the time for that. I need you to be the one to import for me. So you put your markup.
Wow.
That again completely shifted my business.
This is something else again. Okay.
It's another income stream I hadn't noticed. And so I was like, okay, so there are busy people who don't have the time for class. They don't have the 3 days for a class. You just import for them.
Yeah.
And put a markup. And let me tell you, their markups were good. Those ones now, their markups were good. Because even if you put 10% and you're importing a machine that's almost $1 million bob, you have good money.
It's true.
And even if you put your 10%, you're still cheaper than them buying locally.
Yeah.
And so one brought another, and another, and another. And now that one just now grew.
It became a whole other business.
It became a whole other business,
Wow.
even without me advertising it.
Yeah.
It became a whole other business.
So is that how you ended up in the present business, the consultancy that you're in now?
Exactly. And so, because it hit me, so I told my husband, what actually has been giving me the motivation to teach people is teaching them strategy for their businesses. And now this time, we were pregnant, and one of our friends had come over. And so we were talking to her. Actually, she had not just come over.
Yeah.
We were hosting a chama. We were part of a chama. And that day, for some reason, she couldn't host in her house.
Yeah.
So we told her, where are you looking for an Airbnb? You can actually come host in our house. And so when all our other chama members left, she was left behind.
Yeah.
And so we were talking. And I was telling her, okay, for me, I'm really thriving. Like, I've noticed what I'm actually doing. If I'm to put a term for it, strategy for businesses. That's what I'm doing. And importing is part of it. But strategy is the thing. So I need to know how to coin this thing well. Because what I'm actually, it's strategy.
And so that actually became now your current business. It's
and now,
strategy.
guess what? As I'm talking to her, she's been thinking of the same thing.
Oh.
And guess what? This was my prayer to God.
Yeah.
The next business I go into, I need to know someone who's employed because employment has structures.
Yeah.
And so I need a form of structure and I need accountability.
Yeah.
And I need people who've already worked with systems. And so they know how to put systems in place for a business.
Yeah.
I know the risk. For me, starting is not the problem.
Yeah.
Taking the risk is not the problem. But I need to be taught systems because I knew that was a weakness already.
Yeah. And now you find this friend and you actually begin now your present business.
Exactly.
Now, because our time is almost up, somebody's thinking of starting something. Could be a business, could be a family, could be school, whatever it is. From the lessons that you have learned along the way, what are some quick things you will tell them in a minute?
One, just start.
Okay.
Two, and because I'm a believer, I can never remove God from the equation of my story. Be it starting my businesses, He's always been there. Be it starting a family, getting married, getting a child, which you are a parent, you know, that's also another whole discussion about getting children. You can never remove God from the equation of that. Again, something that I had said, we also need to bask in the glory of the God we serve as Christians. And that's something, again, I can never remove from my story. I wish I could say, oh, no, I can't remove that from my story. Because being His child has given me so much confidence that I have till now. That I knew from the time we started a family, we'd always be able to provide and sustain. And He has not failed us.
Because He has been with you.
Starting my business. Even in maternity, as I had to pause, and my husband told me, it's okay, just trust that God has us. He had us and He sustained us. And now, even as I continue, He has continued to sustain us. Getting a child and trusting that God, we don't know where school fees will come from, but we believe by the time that child is starting school, He
will be with you. So just start.
Just start. And let me tell you, if you're a believer, please know, as long as you have God, you already have the cheat sheet that other people don't have. So you need to embrace that, and you need to,
Thank you so much, Helena. What a conversation this has been. I wish we had more time.
I know.
Well, that is it from us this Monday. This is Motivation Monday, where we start off your week with energy, enthusiasm, and inspiration. And this week, whatever you do, just start. Start small, start slowly, start little, but just start. Until next Monday, this is goodbye from us.